This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
Like, you can squish it, you can cut it, you can mix it up, and people blending it into cocktail. We didn't care about it. I think some of the bigger brands, they're a little bit more rigid, and their marketing department's like, oh, you can't do that to our bar of chocolate, or you can't represent it like that. And we were just like, let's just go with it.
Today on Dirty Linen, we're chatting to food business entrepreneur and Mochi lover, Vivien Wong. Little Moons is a UK-based company that specialises in Mochi ice cream balls. They've just launched in Australia with huge ambitions to make Mochi balls part of everyone's life. Vivien grew up around her parents' bakery but pursued a career in finance before food lured her back, as it so often does. Great to have you on the show, Vivien. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be in Australia.
Yeah, so excited to welcome you to our fair shores. Let's start simple. What are Little Moons?
So Little Moons are balls of mochi, which is a soft, sweet dough made from rice flour. So it's a little bit soft in texture, and we wrap it around Italian gelato ice cream. So they're kind of little golf ball shaped balls of ice cream.
And I mean, tell us about some of the different flavours that you do.
So we like our mochis to really deliver on flavour. So I think our best-selling one is called Tropical, which is a passion fruit and mango flavour. And it's a vegan ice cream, which not many people know. It's not something we publicise because I think people often have the impression that vegan ice cream doesn't deliver on texture and flavour. And so that one is vegan. Another one that we have is the Belgian chocolate and hazelnut, which is also a vegan flavour, but it's super creamy and quite indulgent for a vegan chocolate ice cream. And the other one that we have available in Woolworths is our pistachio, which we've got little bits of honey coated pistachios in, so they are a little bit crunchy. And those flavours I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah, so good. I mean, I'm fully prepared to have mochis in my life, but I'd love to dig into the business story. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and, about the journey that's brought you here?
So as you touched on in the introduction, I grew up working at my parents' bakery. They had a traditional Chinese bakery that made the old traditional mochis, which had the red bean inside. And so we always loved watching how my parents made the mochi. They used to craft all these cakes from scratch and really cared about the ingredients. And so when we left university, my brother and I, who's my co-founder, we did go into finance because our parents sort of encouraged us as immigrants to do well at school, and go out into the big world of work. And that's what we did. But finance didn't set my heart on fire. And I always used to come back and speak to my parents and just see what they were doing. And so that's why we decided to make little ice cream mochi balls, because when we traveled to Japan or America, we tried mochi with ice cream, and we thought together as a combination of flavors and textures, it worked really well together. And at the same time, this was 12 years ago in 2010, Japanese food was really exploding in the UK. Like, every corner had an itsu or, a sushi place. And the desserts were like, I don't know, a green tea muffin or green tea brownie. And we just thought that's not good Japanese dessert. So we thought we would try and make ice cream mochi and see if the restaurants would like to take it on. And that's what we did for the first 5 years before launching our retail range.
Wow, it's so great. I mean, it's a family story, also a business story, and also, it just sounds like you love food a lot. I mean, how hard was it to, being that good child of immigrants, to, doing the right thing? How hard was it for you and your brother to change direction?
My parents were actually incredibly supportive of it. I think they just didn't want to push us into it, because I think if we grew up with our parents saying, you will take over the family business, it was never going to happen. So they let us sort of stretch our wings. And it was a really great time, because you learn when you go and work for other people how to manage other people and how not to manage other people, and to see really professional environments of how those businesses are structured. Like there is an HR department, there's an IT system, which we didn't have in my parents' bakery. So I think we learned all of that. We absorbed it. We brought it back to Little Moon. So as we grew the business, we kind of knew what good looks like, and that's what we strove to emulate.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, tell us about the scale of the business now, because I suppose it feels like perhaps if you had been, groomed for the family business, you wouldn't have achieved what you have in a business sense.
So we've been doing this for 12 years. We started in 2010, and we're nearly 13 now. And we started off really small. We didn't get any financing. We just sort of started small in my parents' bakery, and we kind of doubled in size. So maybe 100,000 turnover first year, then 200,000, and so we slowly grew. But in 5 years into the business, we decided to launch into the grocery stores. I think we were about 2 million turnover back then. And then we went into some of the major supermarkets in the UK, like Waitrose and Tesco's, people who are familiar with those businesses. And then 2 years ago, during lockdown, we went viral on TikTok. We had 500 million views on a couple of videos that we had, and people were looking for us. And it just caused everyone during lockdown to go to the grocery store on the hunt for Little Moons, because there was nothing better to do. It was the only permissible thing we were allowed to do, go to the supermarket to buy food. So it just caused everyone to search for it, and we sold out everywhere. And we're just a little factory, and I think we were at 10 million turnover back then, and within a couple of months our turnover hit 27 million. And when you're manufacturing your own goods, especially in the middle of lockdown, it was so hard to meet that demand, because we'd segregated everyone in the factory, obviously lowered the production capability. No one could make more machines for us to lift, to increase any manufacturing. And there was supply chain issues all over the world. We didn't have any containers to bring rice flour over from Asia. It was really difficult to grow the business. And then I guess in the last year, we've just hit 50 million turnover. And so we've grown really quickly over the last 2 years. Wow,
that is amazing. And I mean, you've brought the business to Australia. What other international expansion have you been able to do?
I think we're in 28 international markets now, and that's always been our aim, because we're quite an international brand. Very, very early on, we went to lots of trade shows around Europe as well to sell our products when we were just selling to hospitality. And then we've also expanded that in retail as we've gone, because we've had the right distributors in place. So international markets has always been part of the plan.
I mean, we love celebrating female business owners and success stories on this podcast. I know that your brother's the co-founder and you run the business together, but can you talk about being a woman in business and, striking a path and any lessons that you could share?
It's interesting, because when you asked me before, were my parents supportive of me joining the business or starting my own business? My mum particularly was, because she started the bakery when I was a kid, and back in the 70s you didn't have the labour laws to protect women, pregnant women with children. And so she said to me when I was growing up, you should always try and choose a career whereby you can combine that with childcare, because you're then the captain of your own ship. You don't have anyone judging you when you are working at 10 p.m. and you put the kids to bed and you've finally done everything. And so that was always ingrained into me that it's quite important to start your own business. It's always been a burning desire of mine. And so I'd encourage so many women to do it, because we all work so hard, and you don't need someone to, sometimes you don't need a boss to say, oh, you're not doing the hours, you're not putting the hours in, because when you're an entrepreneur, everything that you do, it's just down to that. So all your output is down to your input, and I think that's quite empowering for women, because we all, we multitask so well. We're super resilient, and I think it's a really great career path for any woman to choose.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. I mean, I don't run a business on the scale of yours, that is for sure. But as a solo freelancer, I do appreciate the freedom to, work to intertwine work and life. But I also sometimes feel jealous of people who are able to take holidays and get superannuation and sick leave and all those kinds of things. I mean, how do you reflect on that balance? That
is true. But I guess what was more meaningful for me is if you had the time and you had your own ability to choose where you focus and prioritize your life is sometimes, I guess that's a trade-off. Like if you don't want to ask permission to leave early to go see your kid at a school play, it's just nice that you're able to do that. And I think that often, and I know the people that work for me, they do take holiday, but they are also watching their emails all the time. And I used to work really hard when I was in finance, and I maybe didn't check my emails as much during work, but it is always on your mind. So you might as well benefit from all of your work during holidays as well and have that recognised.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if you're putting in the hours anyway, it might as well be, coming back to you. The success might as well be your success in the end. What advice do you have for women who might be thinking about starting their own business?
I think that it's definitely confidence that inhibits people, women in particular, from starting their own businesses. So I would definitely say find that confidence, really believe in yourself. And I think there's been so many reports where, men, if they have 2 out of 10 of the job description and women have 8, they still doubt them. The women still doubt themselves. So I would encourage people to have belief in their ideas, to know the worth of their ideas, because I meet a lot of early stage female entrepreneurs, and they give away so much percentage of equity early doors just because they don't value their idea or their business plan enough. And that's, I guess, the sort of advice I would encourage women to have confidence and belief and understand the worth of their business ideas early doors.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you spent a lot of time developing the product early on, as I understand it. I mean, how do you sort of, I get the idea of confidence, but if you've got to be able to have confidence in your product, you've got to really be able to stand behind it, don't you?
Yeah, we just to really know your subject. That's the only way I find confidence in it. I know exactly how to make my product. We developed it over 2 years. And if I don't have confidence in any part of my, any part of running a business, I would just work on it. So I guess as our business grew really quickly, for me, for example, I struggled with the management of my senior leadership team as they grew in size and as they grew in caliber. And so I just recognized that and thought, I'm just going to get myself an executive coach just to teach me a few skills, tips and tricks. And I found it super helpful. And it just meant I went into work feeling that little bit more confident on how to manage all the change that was happening at work. And so I think a lot of, time to self-reflect and to develop yourself also gives you confidence. And, to identify the areas which you're less confident on and just work on those sides. Because, there's bits that you're really good at and no one can do it better than you. Those skills. So just focus on the bits you don't.
I mean, Vivien, you mentioned early on, you targeted some of those Japanese restaurants with their matcha muffins. You thought you could do better. Can you talk about some of those early outreaches to chefs and restaurateurs? How nerve-wracking was that, and how did you, make your first sales?
Well, it's interesting. I went into a distributor to restaurants and I spoke to the team there, and they said to me, look, we're not going to list you. You're not going to be around in 6 months. You're just brand new business. We're not going to waste our time. So I had to go around the other way, and I went in. I literally just walked the streets, and I went into restaurants and asked to meet their head chefs. And I also did a restaurant show, which is an exhibition that we had in London where all the chefs come to see what new products and things we have. So I met a lot of them through there. So I guess that's a better way of doing it, because they're open to meeting you and trying new things rather than going into their kitchen. They're saying, what's this girl doing down here? And so I think chefs in general are so much more open to trying new things. They understand the quality of the product. And so that's why we started with the restaurants first, because if we launched into the grocery stores, no one's going to take a risk to take a box of product that they don't know off the shelf. Whereas when people go out to restaurants that the chefs have put these products on their menu, people are willing to try something new. That's what they're there for. They're there to be entertained. And so that's why we approached the chefs first. And I found all the chefs were really open to it. My husband's a chef. He specialises in Japanese food as well. He's Australian too. And so I met him through that process of meeting chefs and sort of trying to expand the market that way.
Right, yeah, plenty of Australian chefs in London, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I also imagine pounding the pavement with frozen desserts might have its challenges. I mean, I know it's -1 in London as we speak, but it's not always below freezing. That must have been an interesting challenge as well.
Yep. 12-year career in keeping ice cream frozen. I used to have a little portable freezer I used to have in the back of my car, and you sort of plug it into your, the sort of cigarette lighter plug type thing, and basically just rushed to get it to the chef before it melted. I've actually brought some over from London, so I've been driving around like the Brisbane area trying to find frozen ice, like dry ice, to keep it frozen. So this trip has also been very much about keeping ice cream frozen.
That's so funny. I think that's such a great part of a business story, those little details and challenges. Very, very cool. Vivien, you mentioned these TikToks that went viral. I'd love you to talk a bit about the marketing of your products. Like, is that a specialty of yours? Have you brought people in to help with that? How do you approach getting the brand out there?
So I think we always wanted our brand to look joyful, colourful, and I think the product itself lends itself to being marketed on social media really well, because it's such a pretty product to photograph, and you can do it in lots of fun ways. And I think it was just also a product that people wanted to share, and particularly with social media, everyone likes sharing beautiful pictures of whatever they're eating, and that's how I think we started with it. And what was lucky for us is that people like mavens love talking about new things they've tried. And so with social media, I think when you see your friend eating it, you also want to try it. And then also it's so international because, social media is cross borders now. So whatever your friend's eating in Japan, you see it. And so if you see it in your country, you're like, oh, I'm going to try it. And it just opens up the world. And I think that's something that's really benefited Little Moons. And we have brought in a team to do it, because I think when we first tried to do it, my brother and I, our Instagram page wasn't quite as beautiful in uniform. And so we did bring on experts to help us as we grew. And I guess that's how we did that. And then with TikTok, though, that was someone else, like a random person posting a video of them going into a Tesco's to look for Little Moons that didn't really have anything to do with us. And that's, I guess, the beauty of people sharing content and people picking up on it. And we've really benefited from that.
Yeah, interesting. Do you have any advice for people who are launching products or brands? And, obviously everyone's looking for those viral shares. Like, I mean, what could people... You don't want to create brands for social, but you do want to be, have that engagement. Like, what tips do you have for people?
So many people have asked me, how do you go viral on TikTok?
What's the recipe, please, Vivien? Can you share that with us right now?
Here is the formula. Get a pen and pencil. No, honestly, we were so lucky with that. And I think what the only smart thing that we could do with that was to make sure that we pivoted the marketing so that it was the Gen Zs that were seeing all of this going on TikTok, but they weren't our target audience. And so we wanted our target audience to be able to see how popular that it was. So our marketing team then shared the story of us going viral with the broader press, the broadsheet newspapers and magazines and places where our target audience would read and see the story. And so I think it's just making sure that you cover off and you're making sure that your media strategy will be seen by the people that are going to buy your products to begin with. And I guess you just have to stay fluid with it. Like, the reason why we did well on TikTok is because our brand, we didn't mind sort of taking the piss out of it. Like, you can squish it, you can cut it, you can mix it up, and people blending it into cocktail. We didn't care about it. I think some of the bigger brands, they're a little bit more rigid, and their marketing departments, oh, you can't do that to our bar of chocolate, or you can't represent it like that. And we were just like, let's just go with it. And also be open to, so I guess the reason why we also did well on TikTok was that we as a brand were on TikTok pretty early on, because we had we brought on a young intern, a Gen Z, and she said, oh, can we join TikTok? I'd never heard of it. And I think something else she wanted, we said, just go for it, knock yourself out. And I think being a brand and a company that's just open to new things as well, we just said, go for it. So when we did go viral on TikTok, we had a very solid presence on there as well. Whereas I think a lot of brands didn't bother going onto TikTok first. And so we embrace all of these different new social media techniques and videos. And also, when we did start going viral on TikTok, I sort of said, do Charlie, who was our intern, I think maybe you should put a video out to say thank you. Just say, oh, thank you for all your support. And obviously, that would have been the most generic, boring video. And the way that she put her thank you video was a picture of someone with a Mochi face, with a mouth and eyes, super weird, with a celebrity's voice, because you can do those voiceovers, just saying, hi, and it was called Cheryl Cole. I don't know if everyone knows her, but she was talking about how when she became famous and she couldn't leave the house because everyone was following her and all of this. And I just thought that this is why you employ fun people who get this, because they're so much better at it than you. And it's just that creativity that you've got to bring into your business. And like I said, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and just bring people on to cover it off.
I love that. I'm definitely going to go and look for that TikTok. That sounds really good. So who is your target audience then, Vivien?
When we started, I think it was older people, maybe in between their late 20s to 40s, who were, had the money to indulge in indulgent desserts, who were probably quite well travelled to understand what mochi was, who had an interest in food and understanding, indulgent quality foods. And that was the target audience that we had. And inevitably, they were going to be female. And so that was who we started targeting. But then, now we've introduced a much younger audience to Mochi, because I think they're just open to new things. They're not sort of set in their ways, and ice cream's just a tub. They're happy to try new flavors and new textures and different ways of eating. So Little Moons is very snacky, and so you can just take one ball out the freezer, leave it for 5 minutes, and that's how I eat as well. Like, I just want something super indulgent at the end of dinner, 80 calories or something, and know that I'm done and I'm not going to over scoop out of a pot. And, I just savor that little ball of mochi and then I'm done with it. And I think a lot of people like eating like that now.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I can't help but take us back to that throwaway comment where you said you can put them in cocktails. I need to know more.
We've had, I think, a lot of restaurants have paired it with cocktails, especially the tropical passion fruit and mango. I think that goes really well with, is it porn star martini?
I'll take your word for it, yeah.
And if you go onto our social media page, I think we've just done something with an East London liquor company, and they've just made some beautiful cocktails and paired them with our mochi flavours. So have a look there. But that wasn't the first time. So it's happened a few times. And I think people blend them into milkshakes as well, or they put them into their sort of acai bowls, or just put them on top of pancakes. It's really great to see how people are using our ice creams.
It must be fun to create something and just watch people run with it. It must be very satisfying.
Yeah, and just some people like dip it in batter and deep fry them. I mean, it's incredible to see.
You'll love that. So Vivien, tell us about your plans and ambitions for the rest of 2023 and beyond.
I think that we are going to continue our international expansion. I think we have a listing into New Zealand coming up soon. And we have 7 new flavours launching into Australia shortly, which is really exciting. And I guess from a business point of view, because we grew so quickly in the last 2 years, what we're busy focusing on is continuing to grow and develop our systems and culture within the business, because I think when you bring on a lot of people into a business very quickly, the culture can get slightly diluted. So we're going back to making sure that our family culture and values are all shared amongst everyone that works for us.
What is a core value at Little Moons?
Respect is one of them, which sounds like a hygiene factor, but we respect ourselves, which means, sometimes saying no to work, respecting our our team members, the environment and our community. We talk about bringing joy in everything that we do. So in all of our products and all of our interactions, or if we do any sort of presentations, they just have to be joyful, and also being commercial. And our last one is reaching for the moon.
Love it. That's great. Can't think of a better note to finish on. Vivien, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I'm sure your story is going to be really inspiring to the Dirty Linen crowd. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.